І близько 11 години дня був перший.
At about 11 a.m., there was the first airstrike of Russian troops on the entrance group of Feldman Ecopark.
Бомбежка прошла, обстрел.
The bombing and shelling ended. I go upstairs. All the buckets are in holes. If I stood there, I would have been killed.
Рашисти обстрілювали.
The Russians were shelling our territory with various ammunition, but most often, cluster munitions exploded here. The impulses of the explosion and his aggressiveness over it coincided. When these impulses coincide, it seems that the heart is about to burst.
Let them be tried, but a tribunal is, you know, still an easy way off. I would have given them to the lynch mob. A suburb of Kharkiv, the village of Lisne, to the border in towards the Russian city of Belgorod in a straight line there is a little more than 20 kilometers. The social and humanitarian multi-complex, Feldman Ecopark, has 140 hectares of the Nature Reserve Fund of Ukraine. Before the full-scale Russian invasion, it was home to more than 5,000 animals and birds of more than 300 species. Most of them were rare and are listed in the Red Book. Free for visitors, the ecopark welcomed more than 2 million adults and children every year. In the morning of February 24, 2022, the Russians dropped the first bomb. Ecopark was turned into a shooting range with live targets.
After
we were informed that the Russian aggressor was approaching the city of Kharkiv, the Feldman Ecopark. It was about 10 a.m. We started to gather people. Around 11 o'clock, there was the first airstrike of Russian troops on the entrance group of Feldman Ecopark. The first destruction. The first animals and birds fled. From the first hours of the war, we had no electricity. We were left without all communications. There were 13 to 14 people left. Those who could, left when they could. This was the evacuation group, as we called it later. These were the people who had been there the whole time, before the last animal was taken out. The Russian military were standing behind the territory, and our military were on this side, and Feldman Ecopark became a gray zone. You could not raise your head. The shells were flying. Of course, the Russian shells did not reach our positions. They fell down. It was such a hell here. I was cooking in the kitchen. I hung buckets to prevent rats from climbing on hooks at about man's height. And then the shelling started. I went down to the shelter. There used to be pioneer camps there. The bombing and shelling ended. I come up, all the buckets were in holes. If I had been standing there, I would have been killed.
Realizing the risk, a small group of employees and volunteers began to evacuate the animals.
Now we are in the three-story building. This is one of the premises where the evacuation of small mammals and birds. It is -20, and all the windows are already broken. We had no other choice but to take the animals out of here.
About 500 reptiles, small felines and other small animals were taken out before the next shelling of the exotarium.
A phosphorus bomb had already hit here, in the left wing of the building. All 3 floors of the building burned down completely. 5 buildings burned down, and these are not wooden structures, but, as we can see, concrete ones. That is a powerful weapon, an unrealistic boiling point for phosphorus.
The
Russians shelled our territory with various ammunition, but the most frequent explosions were caused by cluster munitions. Starting from the destroyed arena, the strip of cluster munitions goes up to the monkey house. On this strip, enclosures and infrastructure were destroyed, and animals died.
Lemurs were the first to be evacuated because they heat-loving animals. They are used to silence. And then a hit, it was very loud. And they were, of course, stressed. But when they were evacuated, they knew me and trusted me. They came to me and I quickly grabbed them. They came to me for raisins, to eat, and I grabbed them one by one. I caught about half of them that way, and put them in cages. And with the other half it was more difficult. They were jumping on the ceiling, and the ceiling is high, the net was not very long. But we caught them all pretty quickly. All the lemurs survived. But out of 6 orangutans, 2 females were lost. Out of 11 chimpanzees, the young male Bonia died of a heart attack.
Until March 8th, we managed to come here and feed them, and in some places to warm them up, so that they would not be so cold. Bonik died closer to February. The impulses of the explosion and his aggressiveness over it coincided. When these impulses coincide, it's like the heart is about to burst.
In 6 trips, Serhiy Kivshare took out the rest of the primates. Mickey the chimpanzee was the last one. And it was a very risky journey.
Personally, the worst thing for me is when a monkey sits without a leash and not put to sleep. Because it could tear me apart and do anything. And the shots, they were somehow not so scary. The scariest thing was how he would behave.
Після прильотів, такі були жахливі кадри, відірвані ноги в тварин були.
After the hits, we saw such terrible shots. The animals' legs were torn off. Almost all deer died, except for those 6, which were running all summer. We caught 3 of them. The rest are still running in the woods. We have not caught them. The animals that were outside suffered the most from the shelling. There were up to 500 of them and the loss was 100%. These enclosures were shot with a machine gun. Why? Porcupines and marmots died there. I think it was some kind of sick attraction. A normal person would not do that. To shoot animals that are sitting in an enclosure. Experts said that the animals were shot with a machine gun. Some kind of safari for animals in cages. Or what? I don't know how to explain it.
Animal rescuers, same as their charges, have become a living target for the killers.
In 15 minutes, when we arrived to the park, there were drones above us, and they started shooting at us. Not somewhere else, but specifically at the park. It is unknown why they did it. Everyone understood that it was a zoo, not some kind of a military base. It was obvious that it was not a camp. Everyone understood that it was a zoo, but why did they do it? All the workers were wearing uniform.
The unprecedented evacuation of the zoo in the world lasted almost the entire first spring of the war. But this rescue cost the most precious thing: human lives.
Ми втратили 6 людей за період евакуації.
We lost 6 people during the evacuation. These were the guys who really laid down their lives for the welfare of animals. The first losses were in March, when the workers in the bus were heavily shelled. There was a small arms battle. The bus was blown up by a grenade. The bus driver and the guy, who was responsible for heating the premises, were killed. On the same day, we could not find 2 employees, who stayed overnight with the guards to take care of the animals. We did not find them that day, and the next day they did not get in touch again. We lost all contact with them. Our military found them a month later. They were barricaded. Forensic experts said they were shot at close range with Russian weapons. Then Serhiy, who was responsible for feeding the predatory animals.
The 6th zookeeper that was killed by Russian weapons was a 15-year-old teenager, Denis Selevin. The tragedy occurred in early May.
Це вже було таке, знаєте.
It was practically the final stage of evacuation of animals. The weather was good that day, everything was calm. There were journalists from America and Germany. And on that day, Denis' parents brought their son to talk to the journalists. He wanted to study foreign languages. And a heavy shelling started. We were bombarded with grad systems. The whole territory of the park was on fire at once. One shell fell near Denis. His leg was blown off. We were all in shock. We asked the doctor to save his leg. He replied, "Pray that I could save his life." After 15 minutes, the doctor came out and said that Denis was gone.
The pre-trial investigation into the death of the minor is ongoing under Part 2 of Art. 438 of the Criminal Code of Ukraine, violation of the laws and customs of war, combined with premeditated murder. A lot of children died. What does it have to do with children? Let them be tried. But the tribunal is, still an easy way off. I would have given them to the lynch mob. During 199 days of shelling of Feldman Ecopark by the Russian military, 6 people were murdered. More than 300 animals were killed, 90% of buildings and enclosures were destroyed. Explosive objects contaminated the territory of 140 hectares, which is still in some places a death trap.
Після відбудови екопарку буде поставлений монумент цим.
After the ecopark's reconstruction, we will erect a monument to the fallen and those heroes who evacuated animals, who left their families, homes and lived on wheels for almost 3 months, in basements, wherever possible, with animals. They devoted these terrible months and days to saving animals.
The ecopark is slowly but steadily rising from the ruins, clearing its territories from the deadly metal. On the first day of summer 2023, the Alpaca Valley was opened, returning 18 rescued miniature camels relatives from evacuation, which are the half of the pre-war number of alpacas. In the autumn of the same year, the chrysanthemum ball was restored in the ecopark, a traditional beautiful autumn holiday. Birds and animals return home from the forced evacuation. After demining, the construction of the Park of Stones, the Park of Parents, was resumed. The large stones are a symbol of strength, eternity, memory, and connection between generations. People will come here and remember those who are no longer with us.